SparkMES, an MES accelerator for ignition.
All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar where we're going to be exploring Flexware Innovations MES Accelerator SparkMES. My name is Ellie Allen Bathe, and I'm a content marketing manager here at Flexware. Before we get started, just a couple quick housekeeping notes. First, if you have any questions throughout today's presentation, feel free to drop them in the questions tab of the toolbar, and we'll answer those as we go or at the end. Secondly, today's session is being recorded, so we'll make sure that link is available to you shortly after we wrap up. Now that that's out of the way, I'd like to introduce today's speaker. I'm joined today by Eric Moorman. Eric is an architect of SparkMES, and he's been with Flexware for just over 6 years. Eric, go ahead and take it away.
Thanks, Ellie, and welcome everybody. So today we kind of wanted to follow up on some of the discussions and things that were happening at ICC and kind of have another walkthrough of SparkMES and talk about a little bit of what it is, how can you use it, what are the different features and capabilities, and how's it really positioned, right? So yeah, we'll be walking through that. I'm going to start out by just going through a quick little PowerPoint, talking about a high level of what SparkMES is, and then we'll get into actually showing some of the screens and just giving a high level overview of some of these different packages and what it can do. So with that, let's go ahead and hop in. So what is SparkMES? So SparkMES is an ignition-based MES platform, or MES toolkit, we'll say, that is really founded on the idea of, hey, we want to be able to have MES platforms that are very flexible and very adaptable that let us get these projects going. So Flexware was founded in making MES systems. And so naturally, when the MES space started, when ignition started growing in popularity, we started getting asked to build more and more MES systems with ignition. And so instead of redoing the same thing every time, we decided to build this toolkit that is SparkMES to help us build the projects quicker and deliver value more efficiently for our customers. So when you're looking at SparkMES, there's a couple of things you want to think about. So SparkMES is a modern MES application. So it is built on ignition perspective, as most of you are probably familiar with, which means it's using modern web technologies like HTML5 and React, and we follow some UI design principles and stuff to make sure you're kind of getting that good look and feel. And it is also all web-based, which means that it's accessible from computers, phones, tablets, all of that fun stuff as well. I think the biggest focus, too, of SparkMES is on configurability and scalability. So we want SparkMES to be an application that can really fit into your business. A lot of times what you run into with larger MES applications is that you're finding that you have to conform your process to the MES application. With a starter kit like SparkMES that gives you a baseline to start from, you can then take it and we can mold it in to fit your process instead of the other way around, which allows everybody to be more successful. So with that, there comes a lot of configurability and scalability needs. And this comes in two different aspects. First, there is a series of web-based UIs that lets you do a high level of configuration to dictate things like how does your process work? What does your production model look like? That kind of thing. You don't have to get into the database or into any Python code to actually configure how things are going to work more like your day-to-day configuration things. But also with that, for some of the larger changes, right, where we need to conform it to your process functionally, also the whole system is made to where when we start a project, that becomes your implementation of it, right? So it can then have any customizations made to it to make sure it's matching your process, your requirements, and that it's really, again, matching your process the best it can. And lastly, I think another big plus of SparkMES is solution ownership. So at the end of the day, when you're done with the SparkMES project, SparkMES is not a black box. It's built using native perspective components and perspective scripts and all that fun stuff. And so it's not like hiding anything from you, right? So you have full access to it, and you're able to have some of your developers change it if you want to and make their own customizations to really make the solution your own and to help you grow it as well into the future if you'd like to. So that's a little overview on some of the different things of SparkMES. Just one more slide here. So talking about SparkMES, it is built on the Ignition platform. So you'd have Ignition, and then SparkMES is a series of projects and Python scripts, database queries, database tables, all of that fun stuff on top of the Ignition platform and an MS SQL backend. Essentially, it has hundreds of perspective views. We say perspective and vision templates, but we don't really use the vision ones anymore. Hundreds of perspective views that you can use to, out of the box to get you rolling and to get you to that like 80% mark, hopefully, of what you're looking for. It also has some role-based security of being able to integrate with Active Directory. It has its own security inside of it too, so where SparkMES can manage your roles and stuff, or it can hook to identity providers through Ignition. We already talked about how it has a perspective backend out of the box, which you'll see here in just a moment. It has a modular table structure, a bunch of stored procedures that are already there, that already have working functionality integrated to the system, that again, you don't have to write from day one. And then it also comes with the stuff you'd expect, like operator manuals and system configuration specifications and that kind of stuff. So again, really what we're looking at here, and the things I really want to drive home with this, SparkMES is a starter kit. It is not a black box product. It's meant to kind of get you out of the box with something that we can then grow and we can expand to really match whatever the requirements are for your guys' process. So with that, hopefully that gives you a high level baseline of what you're looking at. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to transition into a demo and into showing some of the screens, the different packages and all that fun stuff of SparkMES. And one thing I want to keep in mind as we're going through all the different screens is this is the stuff that you're going to get day one, the functionality that we don't have to create from scratch like you may for most custom MES systems. But everything you're seeing is 100% customizable. So color schemes to changing what widgets show on a screen and all that fun stuff is all very customizable. So with that, let's talk about, there is one other thing I want to talk about here. So I mentioned a couple times this idea of packages, right? So SparkMES, MES is a broad topic. It means a lot of different things to a lot of different people, and hardly anybody wants all of what MES covers. So what we've done is we've broken down SparkMES into different packages that you're seeing on the screen here. And these packages are mix and match. You pay for whichever packages you want, and you can combine them into whatever really fits your process. And also, just the same as how like Ignition's module structure works, you can also start out with one or two and then add some other packages on later. So like, for example, a lot of our customers will start out with just the OEE package to kind of get that POC going, prove out how the system works, that kind of stuff. And then we'll transition into some of these other packages. So yeah, all these packages completely mix and match. All are their own like Ignition projects, not modules right now. And you can kind of have that flexibility to build the system you want. Real quick, just as a high level, I'm going to walk through each one of these. So the OEE package is going to be focused around giving you OEE metrics, so things like downtime codes, scrap codes, in-feed, out-feed scrap counts, that kind of thing, letting you do analytics on your performance and downtime. Track and trace is our largest package. It has everything to do with how tracking material from the begin of a process to the end of a process, and then giving you a genealogy report or a batch report at the end of the process for that batch or assembly. So this is going to include everything like making sure that the assembly or batch is going through the correct steps in the process in the correct order. It's going to record the correct data points. It's going to do data verifications to make sure that you can have like these quality dates where you need to make sure it doesn't proceed without reaching some like metric. It can do like writing recipe parameters down to equipment and all of that fun stuff, right? Work instruction management and showing work instructions on the screen. The track and trace package covers all of this space. The scheduling package lets you do more advanced shift scheduling, and it also lets you do order scheduling when it's paired to track and trace to schedule orders and when they're going to run on the line. Inventory is going to be like an inventory light package where it's not a full warehouse management system, but it does let you have simple inventory controls, being able to see where things are at in the facility, receive inventory, move inventory, physical inventory counts, pick lists, all that fun stuff comes with the inventory package. The ERP integration package gives us a plugin type architecture to let us easily connect to different ERP systems. The quality package is going to be around tracking things that come off the line and they need to have some quality processes done on them. So non-conformance and failure analysis, material review board, these are all terms for this kind of thing, right? Where you're tracking things and then dispositioning it to scrap, to rework, to whatever it may need to go to. Kitting is focused around being able to build out kits that you can then either ship out to a customer, more like ad hoc like kits of materials that you're going to send out, or building out and making sure you have all inventory on hand before an order starts for production. Shipping is tracking where you're shipping material out to customers. And then help desk is just a general help desk for tracking like release notes and bug tickets and all that fun stuff. So hopefully that's a really quick high-level overview of all the different packages. I'll talk through some of these packages more in this webinar. I probably won't get through all of them, but at the same time, we're also every month or two, we're releasing a webinar about each of these packages where we do an in-depth dive into each one. So if you want more information that I cover in these, then check out the YouTube channel. You can see some of those. All right, I think that's enough PowerPoints. That's enough this stuff, right? Let's hop over to actually see some screens and talk a little bit more in depth about what SparkMES is actually doing. All right, so on my screen right now, I am showing a very simple line overview screen that's just kind of overviewing and trying to outline some of the places that SparkMES can play inside of a process. So what I have running right here is a process for making a wagon, which you kind of see in the bottom left here. And this wagon is going to get made over several different stations, these 5 different stations, and you're going to have sub-assemblies that were made and are then going to get added in to the overall assembly and all that fun stuff, right? This is very simple, discrete process, right? That is, just kind of showing how a flow might work, right? Now on this screen, with this process, this is all being run with simulators and everything in the background, so actual tags changing and PLC simulation going and all that fun stuff. You can kind of see the things that are happening on the screen. You got cycle times that are counting up. You can see serial numbers that are showing at every station here to see what's currently being processed there. So that's our track and trace package, tracking real time from the tags, the handshakes from the machine to say, hey, what's going on at the machine right now? Can the serial be there? Let's record all the process data about it, right? All of it executing in a completely headless fashion, where we're just gathering the data and just going along. So you can kind of see some of the track and trace stuff here. With that, if I click on one of these, I can also see ideas of where we're at in cycle time. I can see process data for it and all of that fun stuff. So that's just a real quick look at how track and trace is functioning on this screen. You can also see in here, though, inventory counts, right? So you can see, hey, how many axles do we have? How many wagons do we have that we've actually produced? And you can even look to see, like, hey, what are the different serial numbers we have that we've produced for the wagons that we've made. And this is our inventory package, right? That's kind of be layered on top of track and trace to then provide a context of, hey, how does your inventory state look like right now? So you can then track moving them around and all that fun stuff. And then you also have on here, we have some quality hold stuff where we can get information about, hey, how many non-conformances are we doing? Failure analysis tracking, what's our most common issues that are pulling parts off the line, what stations are giving us the most issues and having parts pulled off the most, right? So you can kind of see a chart here of a lot of that kind of information. And at the top, you got OEE, right, which is showing your availability, performance, quality, and overall OEE for this line. So there's much more to each of these packages that I'll be drilling into here shortly, but hopefully this is giving you an overview of kind of the story that your process may be following, right? You have your own process and you have your own lines and your own machines and all that fun stuff. But hopefully this is giving an overview of kind of how the different packages can work together to then kind of deliver the solution that you may want. Do you want traceability? Do you want to be able to see what serial numbers are at each place? Do you want to know what process is happening there? Then that's where you're looking for track and trace, right? Do you want to know your inventory counts? That's where your inventory package is really going to come into play. So, yeah. So that's kind of the overarching idea here to show some of the different packages. Next, what I'm going to start doing here is I want to start drilling into some of our screens that would be like some of our day one screens that you'd be looking at around some of these different packages. So I am going to start out with the OEE package, which again is our most popular package, I would say. This is where most people start with SparkMES, and show you some of those dashboards. So let's hop over to it. All right, so this is our out-of-the-box OEE dashboard. The purpose of this dashboard is to show from a high level, like kind of all the different statistics of how is my plant, how is my line, how is my machine, how is all of that running. This is meant to be something that you may show on like a TV, or you may have an engineer or a line lead looking at on their computer or something like that, right? And really the purpose of this and the purpose of the OEE package is to gather equipment information from each machine, in feed, out feed, scrap counts, scrap codes, downtime codes, all of that fun stuff, and then propagate that up the tree automatically to give you this kind of information in a digestible format to give me, hey, how is my plant really running right now? Or how has it been running in the past, and how can we improve into the future? So at this dashboard, I'm currently looking at the last 2 hours data, but I can see just real quick for my entire plant, I can see, or I guess my enterprise in this case, since I'm looking at my enterprise level right now, as you can see up here. I can see, hey, I have, what's my overall OEE? My overall OEE is 46%, and here's some different information that makes up that gets me to that 46%. But I can also from here tell all of my different plants. I can see for each plant, how are they running, what's their OEEs, or their OEE values, how many good parts and bad parts have they produced. Again, all this information, just trying to surface it in one screen so you can get an idea at a glance of what's actually happening. And the last thing on here I'll show too is your top downtime codes. This is, I think, probably one of the more important things on this screen, right? Which downtime codes or what problems are causing my lines to be down the most? This is really what we're trying to root out with OEE for the most part. How do I maximize my time when we're producing? And so here I can see that it looks like my e-stop events are causing me the most downtime, followed by light screen tripped and paused. And it looks like because this is a simulator, every plant is causing me the same amount of downtime for e-stops. So again, you can kind of get an idea of not only what issues are causing me the most problems, but where are those coming from. And these are the types of insights you're really looking for here. But from here, I can also keep drilling in, right? So maybe the enterprise view isn't super helpful. I want to drill more in to see what's going on at plant one. So I could click on plant one, and I could see that plant one has 2 lines, and they're running with 45% and 46% OE. I can see their metrics, their downtime code breakdowns, and all that fun stuff. And then I could just keep drilling in to see my line and my machines. If I finally get to the machine level, then I could get some more granular metrics about what's actually happening on this machine. Right? So once you get down to machine level, we can start showing some more information here. Things like at the top, we're showing a timeline essentially for this last 2 hours. Green being when we were running, red being when we were down, and you can kind of hover over it to see information about the downtime or the running time. Just to give you an idea of, hey, at a high level, how am I doing, right? What's my availability going to be looking like? Is there big clumps of downtime that I need to go look into what happened at that point? That kind of information. You can also see at the machine level the OEE statistics for that machine, as well as the actual versus target parts produced. This middle trend here is showing how the OEE is calculating the OEE for every hour over the last 7 days. So you can kind of get an idea of over time, how is my OEE changing as we're moving through. And so you can look for trends in it, right? Like maybe your availability gets a lot worse on second shift, right? That gives you a data point to start looking into, like why is that? How do we fix that? And start to drill into that. It also highlights that we, with the OE package, we have our data stored in a way that's very flexible for aggregation. So you can really aggregate, and we can show that data, by time slices, or we can show it by order or by part number, or anything that you're really looking for. Can be done based on the data model we have for the backend. It's not like pre-aggregated to a bunch of different, so you're restricted to what you can query the data on. And lastly, on this screen, we have probably the simplest thing on this, but also probably the thing people are looking for the most, is the downtime Pareto. For this machine, what is causing me the most downtime in both number of occurrences and the total amount of time spent down? And again, just telling me kind of what I need to look at. So just the same as it was at the high level, looks like I need to go look at my e-stops. So this is kind of a high level of what the OE package is really doing, right? We're gathering this data from the equipment level, we're showing it here for the machines, and then we're propagating it up to the area, to the line, and giving you those kind of insights into, what do I need to improve, right? Maybe your performance is low, right? And you need to start figuring out how can we up our line speeds or machine speeds to make sure we're matching that. Or maybe you have lots of downtimes for a certain reason, like e-stops being pressed. How do you mitigate those to get your time back? So one thing I'll also say, and this is the true with the OEE package as well as every other package of SparkMES, all of our packages function in both headless and like manual modes. So for here, right, this data that I'm gathering from here could be automatically recorded from a piece of equipment on the line, right? We're receiving in-feed counts from a PLC, we're receiving out-feed counts from a PLC, or maybe we're receiving those in-feed or out-feed counts from an API, right? Where we're pulling it from some other system that you have, right? Or scrap codes is a common one where maybe we're connecting to a quality system. SparkMES functions with all of that. But we also have built-in components that can let you have an operator punch in through the UI to say, hey, here is how much scrap we had, or here's what our current status is, and all that fun stuff, right? Or when I show track and trace in a second, right? What's the process data, right? Maybe you have the operators, you need them to fill out a form. And kind of show that to store the information. So all the different packages, we understand that everybody's processes are at a different state, and maybe your processes are a little bit different depending on if you're in one site to another or one line to another, right? We can support all of those depending on your configurations. Yeah, and I guess kind of also in that same vein, you can also do a semi-automated way with downtime codes where you can have it to where if we were to enter a downtime code that required operator like information, then they would get a doc where they could then enter they could give clarification or reason code to that downtime. So kind of allowing for this like pseudo automated, we use the timestamps from the machine, but clarification from the operator. So, and just to kind of show you a little bit of how this is all done, right? So that's all there. That's all cool that it's configured. Let me hop over to the configuration service to just give you an idea of the configuration, how you would go about setting this up. So most of the configuration for OEE is done through a single front-end UI for process configuration or for your production model configuration. And from this screen, you can configure all of your different locations, right? So you have your enterprise and your plant and your line and your machines, which you saw me drilling down, right? And I can say for every, based on the location type, I can say, how should the OEE flow up through these different locations? So I could add new locations through this UI to make sure that I'm starting to get new data, right? And I can also through this UI, tell me what tags are going to be giving me this OEE data, or what are my machine events, right? What are my different downtime codes and running of the codes, and how do I relate those to the PLC, and how do those affect my availability and whatnot? So all of this configuration you're seeing in the execution UI is done through this screen, right? A web-based interface where you can modify your process, tweak your calculations, and all that good stuff. So this is an example of one of those scalable and configurable things that we're really looking at. Cool. All right. So that's the OE package. Again, just a little bit high level overview of the OE package. Next, I want to step back to our line overview. And so we talked about one of the components that's shown on here, one of the different packages that we have. But next, I want to do an overview of what track and trace does. Again, I'm going to say track and trace has a lot of functionality inside of it, but I'm going to try to stay pretty high level here. And then if you have any questions, we can talk about it, or we have another video about where we spend an hour talking about specifically all things track and trace. So like I mentioned before, the track and trace package, the really focus of track and trace is to track everything about how an assembly runs down the line. Or a batch assembly, whatever you want to call it. So here, what I'm doing is I'm tracking these wagons as they're going down, and I'm tracking different process parameters. I'm writing recipe parameters. I'm tracking any non-conformances and that kind of stuff. And so I kind of showed you before how you can see what serials are at each location, and I can see their cycle time tracking of how long it's taking with this bar going. But I can also, if I click onto it, I can also see, the process data. This isn't a good one. Let's up here. I can also see some process data about what's actually happening right now. And this is just an example of just like a line overview screen. I'll show our actual UI here in just a second. But I think also an important output of this is that by doing this data, really the purpose of doing this data, of using the track and trace package, is one, so you can verify limits, right, and make sure the parts you're producing are good. You're passing quality metrics and all that fun stuff. But also, it's so at the end of the day, you can see, hey, what assemblies have I run here? And then also, what was the data I gathered? So maybe if you get a recall for whatever reason, or you want to see, hey, these batches came out to be too thick or something, and you want to do those analytics on to see kind of why, like what data was causing this. So if I go here, I can go to any one of my serials here. Just choose one. And I can see information that's been gathered about this this specific wagon that's running down the line. So I can see like what's the part number of it, where is it currently at right now. I can see what parts it's consumed, and if they had serial numbers, what serial numbers they were consumed from. I can see, what steps has it gone through in the process. It looks like I've completed all the steps except for this one. And I have, different process data points I'm gathering, the set points I wrote down, the links I've recorded, all of this fun stuff is all just being gathered and shown on a report. So you can see everything that happened to this wagon when you're looking back at it. And, this data just keeps being recorded for everything. So, and this is really where you get the power of the data, right? So you can do whatever analytics or reporting you want off of this. And once again, this case, completely headless. So no operator intervention is happening here to gather this data. We're just monitoring tags, seeing them change, recording the data against whatever batch or assembly is currently running at that time. So all done based on your configuration. So I would say this is a simple case for track and trace, right? Where it's just running through and it's just recording data and all that fun stuff. Sometimes though, you need to have an operator to be able to do things, right? And I guess also maybe we'll talk a little bit about the flow of track and trace and how it functions. So let me hop over to a different workstation. Hop over to order management. So one of the key components of track and trace in SparkMES is the order. Now we can function in a continuous process where you don't have work orders. Essentially, we just have one long production order that's running all the time. But in most processes, you're going to have a production order or work order, whatever you're using, that you're going to be producing a batch or assembly to. So for those, this screen here would let you actually create the orders you want, right? So in the system here, through the UI, we can create orders. We can, give them we could give them order parameters to dictate what we need to do, add direction to what we need to do for this process. We can give them order numbers and what part and route are we producing with this, right? All of that could be done through here. Most of the time, this screen doesn't end up being used because we can also connect to an ERP system and pull the information in that way, right? This would be where we could leverage the ERP package to receive these orders in automatically and not have to configure them through here. So, but you have this in case you don't have an ERP system or something like that. So lots of different options there for how you do it. But once you receive the order, then you can go do actual production, right? So let me hop over here. So I've made my order. I made an order earlier for this batter order on my vanilla. I'm making vanilla cake batter. So once I made that order, I can go to our process entry screen. And our process entry screen is the most customized screen in the system. But what you're going to see here, again, fully customizable. It would be modified to match whatever either your current screens look like or whatever your operators, match how your operators work. But to give you an idea of some things that we can show on the process entry screen, what I did there is I chose what machine I'm currently at, and then I scanned or I selected the serial that I want to currently work on. We make sure the serials are meant to be there, that they're coming in the correct order, all of that fun stuff. But once I'm in here about that serial, you can see some of the stuff that we can do with track and trace, right? So track and trace includes a wide variety of different things you can do with it, and I'm only showing probably a subset of it here. So for example, I can see cycle time tracking. How long have I been spending on this step? And then later on, you can do analysis of, hey, how long am I doing? Well, am I doing compared to my targets, right? I can see work instructions. So I can see PDFs, like I can have a PDF show of different work instructions that I want to show, right? To give the operator some information about what they need to be doing, right? These work instructions can be PDFs, they can be videos, they can be whatever you want it to be, as long as they're web browsable, you could show them. I can also see that for this serial running at this station, hey, what are the different steps I need to do as an operator? What am I doing at this station? So it looks like at this station, I have 3 different steps in the process I'm going through, where I need to cream, sugar, and butter. I need to beat the eggs, and then I need to add some vanilla to it, right? So these are the steps I need to go through, and I have to check off all the steps before the station is done. Well, right now I'm at the cream, sugar, and butter step. And it tells me information down here about what I'm asking the system's asking the operator for. Hey, tell me what lot or what box you're consuming butter from, right? And what box are you consuming sugar from? And then they would go in here and enter it in, or most likely they'd have scanners that they would be doing it, not typing it like I am. But we're kind of manually having them do this stuff. This is stuff where maybe we didn't have a mounted scanner, right? If we had a mounted scanner that was connected to ignition, right, then we could also just pull this in automatically and not have to have the operator give us the data, kind of like our other example was. So, but from here, I can do that. I can go ahead and have the operator scan, and then they could just hit when they're done, they could hit complete operation. And that would check off that step. That would verify any limits, verify the inventory to make sure that inventory exists if you're using the inventory package. And then it would do all that fun stuff to make sure you're good to complete, and then we complete it. So it would do the real-time consumptions to ERP and all that thing. And it moves me on to my second step, which has a different set of work instructions. Here it's asking me to scan a lot of eggs. And it's asking me to enter a viscosity measurement, which again could also be recorded from the PLC if we had that tech. But it's also writing to me the set point, right? So it's telling me, hey, here's the set point for the viscosity. And maybe that's important for the operator to know so they can verify kind of themselves, like, hey, how does my value look? Maybe they have to enter it into the piece of equipment, right, where they need to take that 10 and then type it into the HMI someplace. Or if you configured it as such, this set point could also write directly to the PLC tag, right? And it could all go ahead and directly just say, hey, here's the set point, tell the machine so the operator doesn't have to get involved. So again, you can kind of have this read-write relationship through track and trace to like do handshakes to verify data and to make sure everybody's on the same page of what's going on and kind of supplement the instructions you have. So I can fill out this and then hit complete operation again. And there we go, right? So I'm just stepping through the process, doing all this stuff. You're kind of getting the idea now of what track and trace is doing, hopefully. We're just going through, recording the data, making sure the operator is doing this information, entering the information correctly and all that fun stuff. Track and trace also includes things like adding ad hoc notes and upload images and things against it if you wanted to, this like ad hoc data tracking. And it also can support things like process deviations, where when you need to make changes to the process to, maybe you ran out of parts, you need to skip a step for some reason, right? You can do that kind of thing with like a supervisor approval or something. So all of that's supported in track and trace. And again, at the end of the day, what this is all working towards is a genealogy report that you can have to either hand off to a customer, or you can use it for whatever you may be. So that's the track and trace package at a high level of what it's doing. Tracking all the parts running down the line, giving you a genealogy report, making sure every part's produced good or batch or whatever. So hopefully that made sense. All right, so now we've talked about track and trace, and we've talked about OEE. Now let's talk about some of the other packages that we have in SparkMES. So next, I think I'll give a high-level overview of what the inventory package does. So let me hop into inventory here. So the inventory package is meant to be used in conjunction. Well, it can be used in conjunction with one of the other packages, or it can be a standalone, I suppose. But what it's trying to do is show you, hey, what is your current inventory state? And give you some simple controls to manage your inventory state. So inventory package is used in a lot of places where using a full like WMS system is just way too heavy, way too many configuration options and stuff, and you need more of a lightweight solution. Or it's also used as a front end for other WMS solutions. So it can be made to be integrated into like track and trace, for example, or allow for operators to enter things through the web or whatever it may be, right? To kind of supplement the data or provide data to your ERP system about any inventory state. Here on this view, just showing the inventory state of how many counts are in this specific location, showing like the minimum inventory that I want to have here before I maybe need to alert somebody that, hey, we don't have enough inventory here. But also, if I jump over to the inventory package, So this is our inventory workstation, which is kind of the hub of everything inventory, where most of your inventory personnel are going to spend their time. So we can see in here all the different functionality that we have in the inventory package that you can use. So here on this screen here, I can see is our view inventory screen where I can see what inventory I have in my plant. So let's maybe go to here. And if I were to click on a specific location, I could see what inventory I have, what their lot numbers are, if there is lot numbers, what serial numbers are there, what quantities there. And I can just see information about what's going on. And I can click on any level in our plant, again, based on the production model configuration you saw from the location model we showed in the OE section. I could click on any level and see what inventory we have at each of these different locations, right? So I can see specifically drill down how much do I have in this area versus this area. Maybe I want to search for certain lots or whatever. You can do all of that here. So just letting you kind of have one spot where you can go to see your entire inventory state and what you have. The other things the inventory package can do, right? So you also need to have, you can't just have read-only stuff. You also want to have some controls over your inventory. So we have some controls in here. Like moving inventory, receiving inventory, and then splitting inventory. So being able to move a box from one place to another, or maybe a skid from one place to another, receiving a new skid or box into the system, and then also being able to split those into multiple. Again, very simple inventory controls, but cover most use cases, right? Inventory package can also do things like physical inventory or cycle counts, whatever you want to choose, whatever you want to call them, where you can have physical inventory orders that are made that you have to then go in and reconcile what's actually happening, or what's your actuals, what does the system think versus what's actually there, and do any of those reconciliations. Or cycle counts can be done periodically, or they can be done in a more ad hoc fashion where you're creating the cycle count orders yourself. It also can handle pick lists, where maybe you want to do make some picking orders that are going to get made for your different track and trace processes, or maybe you just want to make them ad hoc. And then you're going to assign those to people, to drivers, to then go and pick up the parts and move them to wherever their destination is. Right. And everything in here is completely audited. So every move, every receive, every consumption, all that fun stuff. Well, I guess not consumption on this screen, but it's all being stored in the history, so you can see what happened to a box from the time it entered the system to whenever it left the system or got consumed or whatever. So you have the entire history of everything that happened in here. This is a pretty new environment, so there's not much going on here. You can kind of see like a receive where I received 100 quantity into a specific location and there was a box number, right? So it's just giving you all this history of inventory, which again can be used to supplement your track and trace data if you're using the track and trace package. So that's the idea of inventory at a high level, tracking your inventory state, what's going on, and making sure you know where all your parts are, and making sure you have enough parts to then match your production. Let's do a high level now of quality. I hop into the quality package. So the quality package is focused around this idea of failure analysis, or MRB, or nonconformances, or whatever term you want to use in your industry. Basically the idea of, hey, what happens when I need to take a part out of inventory or off the line? I need to mark it as quality hold, or MRB, so that it can't be used on the line. We don't want it to be shipped out. We don't want it to be run anywhere. We want to restrict where it moves inside of inventory, right? The quality package lets us pull those things out, put them into a quality hold state, and then allow for the quality engineers to then do their processes on it, and then disposition it at the end of the day, to then disposition it back to the line or to scrap or to whatever it may be. So this is just a chart showing it, but if I hop into, let's actually go back here. So for an example of how we could do this, if I wanted to send this serial number to quality hold from the operator screen, I could go to this nonconformance entry and do it in line. And then here I would get a small form to fill out. This form is dynamic, right? Where based on whatever you want your operators to enter. And the operator could just give us a short blurb of why they're sending it to nonconformance. and just fill it out with whatever information they want. Hopefully they fill it out with better information than what I just did. But they would give their own little stuff of what they're doing, why they're sending it. And this would essentially travel with that part to quality hold as like a ticket to kind of give the quality engineer some idea of what's actually happening, right? Why did it get pulled over? What do they need to be looking at? That kind of stuff. So if I were to do this, you'll see that I pulled it out, and you'll see that that serial number from over here disappeared. So it's no longer in the list. That is because it's now on quality hold. Can't be run anywhere. Can't be consumed anywhere. Can't be shipped. All that fun stuff. And now, if I wanted to go see that, hop over to our failure analysis. And let's do, that's a lot of orders. All right, let's do this one here. So here I can see some of my different orders on here that have been made, right? So this is like a Kanban style ticket system where I can see different tickets here. I can see what status, who they're assigned to right now, as well as their current status in the process of being going through the quality team. And so your quality team could just go in here, the ticket would appear. If I click on it, I could then see information about like tracking the status of the ticket as it goes through the different steps. I could assign it to a specific user to say, hey, you need to be the one actually working on this. It would then send like an email and all that fun stuff to it. You can assign attachments to it, to add images or pictures or maybe test files, CSVs, that kind of stuff to it. And then also you have this dynamic form over here of different information that you may want to track about this as it's running. So maybe, for example, they want to say, oh, I need to enter some comments about it. You can go to any field over here and you can change the value of it and then save, right? And that'll then save your change. And all changes are audited so that, well, I guess this one doesn't show the audit here, but all changes are audited. So we would be able to tell you what it was, when it went from each status to the next and all that fun stuff. So you go in here, enter all the information you want into it. That would let you, let you just track what's going on about this as it's in quality hold. And at the end of the day, when it's done, you would then be able to disposition it either, back to the line as good, you'd rework it, or you'd set it out for repair or whatever it may be, right? You're going to disposition it to then make sure that it can go wherever it needs to go. So the whole idea of this is just being able to do that and track the data and be able to look back at the data. And every piece of nonconformance you're doing or failure analysis you're doing in here, all that data is associated with the inventory or the assembly or batch that you're doing the failure analysis on. And so then it can be like part of your genealogy report. So that's really the high level of quality. I'll say the other thing that quality does, the quality package gives you, it gives you the ability to do inventory or incoming quality control, or IQC. What IQC, the main focus of that is being able to configure tests that you want to run every time you receive inventory based on the part number to kind of like make sure the inventory is good, right? So maybe every time I receive part ABC or every time I receive a case of eggs, I want to do a test on maybe 10% of the eggs to just make sure that they're good, and then I'll call the whole box good. And until I do that, I want to set it aside, make sure it's in quality hold and all that fun stuff. So that's another part of the quality package, doing that kind of like inventory verification, configuring processes and all that fun stuff to do that tracking. So so that's a high level of the quality package and what's going. So again, non-conformances, failure analysis, and incoming quality control, really what you're looking at with that package. Let's see. Yeah, so the next package I think I'll talk about, maybe the package I'll end off on here for this webinar, is the scheduling package. I'd say the scheduling package is the next of like the main 5 packages that we use a lot. The scheduling package, the purpose of the scheduling package is to allow for you to have better visibility and control over the different schedules that you may be maintaining in your facility. So the scheduling package out of the box, it has links into OEE, it has links into track and trace, to make sure that you're kind of scheduling orders or you're scheduling when different part numbers are going to be running. So that can affect like your targets, and it can affect your, how we present orders to the operator on an HMI, right? So from the screen right here, I can see on the left, I can see all the different orders we have in the facility that right now that we've received. I can see which ones have been scheduled already. Right, so you can see some of these have already been scheduled, what their status is, what their quantities are, that kind of thing. And then from here, you can then schedule things into the center part here, which you can already see that I have 4 lines or 4 machines that I'm currently scheduling between. And so I can, make these schedules, assign the orders to specific machines. And I'll show that here in a second here. But Ellie, was there a question?
Quick question. Yep,
Yeah.
quick question for you. Is
Yeah.
it possible to install and test this on an ignition trial basis?
So we can definitely talk to you about that. We don't have right now, since there are no modules, then there is no like 2-hour trial type thing. But we have done, we have worked out like 30-day trials or something like that with people. So definitely something we'd be happy to discuss what some options are there. So good
Awesome.
question.
Thanks, Eric.
Yeah. Thanks, Ellie. All right. So I could go ahead and schedule these, but one thing I can do on here too, once I have orders on the schedule, I could go through and I could actually see where they're at on here. And if I wanted to move them around, I could change where things are going here. So maybe this order I want to pull in a little bit, and that'll reflect into track and trace or OEE. I can also see progress bars on here of kind of getting an idea of, hey, where am I actually at with this order's production, right? So for this order, it looks like I'm 14% of the way through it. If this was real time, you'd have a blue bar here, so you can kind of get an idea of where you're at versus where you're at time-wise versus where you're actually at with the production. And you can also, like I said, you can just drag them around, change the links and all that fun stuff of it. So when I schedule an order, so if I were to say I want to schedule this order of 1, I could hit the schedule button, and this would let me then go over here and it would give me information about how to schedule this. The way our scheduling package works out of the box is that it is not an automated scheduling tool, but it is like I would say a semi-automated scheduling tool based on the information that we can get. So the way we would rely on you giving us, whoever the scheduler is, to give us the start date of this order. And then we would automatically calculate. Again, if you're using like track and trace or something, we would have more context on this, right? But we would know the order quantity from the order we're scheduling. We would know based on the part number how many units per minute are getting made, or gallons per minute, or whatever your measurement may be. And we know from OEE what your efficiency is, right? So we can go ahead and tell you like, hey, here is the we can auto calculate essentially the end date based on the start date information, right? So set this to 50, right? You'll see that it kind of changes the end date there for you to match based on your settings that you have. And then you can assign a color and you can assign what machine to schedule it to, right? So really what you're doing in the scheduling, semi-automated, and the fact that you're giving us a start date and a schedule and a machine to assign it to, but we're calculating the end date based on that information. It'll also handle scheduling around breaks, which I'll show you in just a second how to make those. So it kind of has some smarts to it as well. A common thing that we see with the scheduling package is that you start out in this state, and then we'd work with you when we're doing when the project implementation is happening. If you wanted to get more towards auto scheduling, then that would be where we have to understand your rules, your specific, how your schedulers operate. What do they think about? What are rules of your process that are unique to you? And then add those in to start calculating start dates and machines and that kind of thing. So, but it's a nice foundation for that. Also from here, you can schedule breaks, or what we call schedule exclusions, where you can schedule like weekends or breaks or lunches or whatever. So I could schedule like a lunch, right? And then you schedule it for a specific machine or for all locations, give it a start and end time. And that would then show up on your calendar so that you can know when your breaks are, and anytime you're scheduling stuff, it'll make sure that it's scheduling around your breaks and not through them. So again, just adding more smarts. That can also supplement your OEE. because then you know when your breaks are, so you can have planned downtime for that. So the other thing in the scheduling package too, I'll say, is that it also functions for shift scheduling. So I can see my schedule up here that I have. I only have one schedule configured with actual events, but I can get an idea of all my different schedules. Let's maybe drill in a little bit here. I can see my schedule, each of my shifts that are going on when they run from and to. I can see their break times of when they have breaks set into the schedule. And then I can also change it, right? So maybe I decide, oh, I'm only going to work half shift on this day. I could then drag that over, and that would affect our shift schedule for OE, right? And this would become planned downtime. So that's a couple things the scheduling package can do, right? So it's all centered around order scheduling, shift scheduling. How do we know what's actually coming up, giving us that like forward thinking sort of thing into it. So yeah, I think with that, I think that's what I'm going to run through today. So hopefully that helps with giving you like a high level overview. I know I was running through things pretty quick in this webinar, a lot of information going on. So like Ellie said, if you want to look back at it, you can on YouTube. Also, for some of these packages here, for OEE, track and trace, and quality, we've done full-length webinars already that you could go look at to receive more information on those. And I think we're going to have an inventory one coming up fairly soon. I'm sure Elliot will talk about that here in a second. So yeah, hopefully that all helped and all that fun stuff. Really quick though, now that we've talked about SparkMES a little bit, I did want to real quick give one shout out to 4AR, who 4AR actually is hosting this entire demo environment you're seeing. Super appreciative for those guys for hosting this and giving us all these awesome tools for it. 4AR is a company that kind of helps out with doing the infrastructure. You know, they say that behind every great system, like SparkMES or whatever your application is, there has to be a great infrastructure, right? And especially as you're going to scale, that can get kind of complicated. So 4AR is a great partner for helping to manage that infrastructure that can then you can deploy your apps on and making sure it's always performing well. And they can also provide cool stuff like this where you can have so much information about what's happening that lets you tune your applications, make sure everything's going well, getting alerts if things are going down, all this really cool information that you can have to make sure that you're successful and that your deployments are all successful as well. So yeah, just wanted to give a huge shout out to them. Great guys to work with. We partner with them a lot on a lot of our different SparkMES deployments and other Ignition deployments. So yeah, thanks for hosting this demo.
Awesome. I think we're ready to start taking some questions. If there's any other questions anyone has, feel free to drop them in that questions tab. But we do have a couple to get started with. So first, how does the licensing of SparkMES work?
Yeah, good question. So the licensing of SparkMES, we like to follow IA's model as close as we can to it. So what you'll do is you would pay for each package per production gateway. So for each production gateway you have, you would then pay for the package on there. And then on top of that would just be customization services or something you want to for that. But there is no recurring cost or anything like that. That's a one-time cost for the package. And then any like support or anything would be for services. And if you're interested in any of our package pricing on our website, sparkmes.io, we have all the pricing on here. We can kind of get an idea of how much all the different packages cost. So again, one-time costs for each of those.
Great. And then which module contains shift scheduling?
Yeah, so shift scheduling is going to be focused. So there's kind of shift scheduling is in two different packages. It's kind of split between the two. First is the OEE package where you're going to have to configure. Let me show that really fast here. Okay. So from this screen here, you can configure your shift schedules. What does an ideal shift schedule look like? You know, how do I work week to week? This is maybe a bad one, where I can say, okay, I'm a 24/7 facility, and you can kind of set that all up. When are my breaks, all that fun stuff. So this is how shift scheduling can work here. The scheduling package also factors this because it then takes this and gives you an interface to where you can change it in a more ad hoc fashion, right? So like this is kind of the planned way of doing it. And the schedule says, okay, well, here's the plan built out, but then I want to change it to match maybe what reality was. So it's kind of split between two of them, right? With either package, you would get some of the shift schedule functionality.
Awesome, thanks. This next one is, am I able to make customizations to SparkMES? And if so, is there a recommended way to do that?
Yeah, so you can definitely make customizations to it. We mentioned kind of in the PowerPoint area section that once you get your implementation of SparkMES, then it's kind of like yours. You kind of own it to run with and add whatever features you want to, or partner with us to make updates to it, or if you want to. So yeah, you're definitely open. You're free to do whatever you want with it when it's deployed. And we do have a guide for how you should make updates, using like project inheritance and things like that to make sure that we're able to track and delineate changes that are happening for the project versus base package updates. So that then it'll make any updates you may want to do for any new cool features we add easier down the line. But yeah, definitely can do any updates that you're wanting to do.
Awesome. That's all the questions we have. So we'll go ahead and get wrapped up here. Thanks, Eric, for the presentation and for answering all of those questions. And thank you all for joining us today. I hope you're walking away with some actionable insights to take back to your team. If you're currently using Ignition and looking for a quick and cost-effective path to MES functionality, reach out to us. We can get you scheduled with a personalized demo, and you can see exactly what you need and how SparkMES can fit into your current operation. So if you'd like to do that, you can reach out to me directly at ellie.allenbathe@flexware.com, or you can reply to that email I'll be sending you shortly with the recording link, and we'll make sure you get all scheduled. And then secondly, like Eric mentioned, we do have a SparkMES preview series where we go through each package. So we have a couple where you can find recordings if you head over to flexware.com/events. There you can find the recordings of our previous sessions and get signed up for our next one, which will be on inventory management, and that's coming up here on October 22nd. So if you're interested in that, make sure to go ahead and get signed up at flexware.com/events. But yeah, have a great rest of your day, everyone, and thanks for joining us again.
Ready to start your Spark journey? Learn more about SparkMES at sparkmes.io.